Madam Deputy Speaker, with these selected statistics, the Secretary would clearly make a very good cherry picker.
He talks about international outliers, which shows that he is the one who is cherry picking.
Ooh, there's a lot of cherry picking there between the exchange with our rather smug Kemi Badenoch and SNP MP Allan Brown, where they were crossing swords about UK trade performance.
Madam Deputy Speaker, with these selected statistics, the Secretary would clearly make a very good cherry picker while she clutches at straws at the same time. The reality is we still have a cost of living crisis, and I would welcome her to my constituency to tell people in my constituency how rosy apparently things are in the UK at the moment. The reality is real GDP growth in the UK compared to pre-pandemic is just 1%. That's a third of the EU average figure and an eighth of the US growth. And the here and now figures are even worse. The UK economy shrank in 2023, whereas with significant growth in the G7 and across the OECD average. Indeed, now is probably the only time in living history the UK economy is actually on a par with Germany, but sadly that's because Germany is also an international outlier in terms of lack of economic growth. Volumes of UK goods imports and exports is 7.4% smaller compared to 2018. That's the biggest 5-year decline for which comparative records exist. And the Secretary is right, exports to the EU are up, but imports for the EU are also up, so the trading deficit with the EU is actually increased by over 5%. And yesterday, with the introduction of new customs and checks procedures on animal and plant products coming into the UK, which alliance trade is estimated will cost British businesses £2 billion a year. UK Energy estimates energy bills are currently £1 billion a year higher due to post-Brexit trading arrangements. So instead of talking up the minimum savings in what she calls cutting red tape, I wish you'd come here and tell the truth on what the actual Brexit red tape trading cost increases are to businesses in the UK, not to mention the impact of labour shortages. Madam Deputy Speaker, this Parliament is set to break a lot of records. The biggest drop in living standards, the longest decline in GDP per capita, the steepest 5-year decline in volume of trade, the stock market shrinking at its fastest pace in history. So what of these record-breaking achievements for broken Britain is she most proud of?
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It was very interesting to hear the honourable gentleman talk about his constituent. What he should tell his constituents, certainly what I would if I was there, would tell them that the 7-year administration of First Minister Nicola Scotland, the SNP welfare economy grew at half the growth rate of England. If the SNP had achieved growth in line with England, they could have increased Scotland's economy by 15 billion. Instead, that welfare economy means no growth because of the highest income tax rates in the UK, higher wages in the public sector than in the private sector. Their policies are not helping. He asks questions. He doesn't want to hear the facts, but I will give him the facts. He asks questions about pre-pandemic GDP. He talks about the real pre-pandemic GDP figure. Of course, the pandemic had an impact. We cannot be here and pretend that it did not. Even the statistics that I'm quoting show that COVID had a far bigger impact than leaving the European Union ever will, just as Russia's war in Ukraine would have a far bigger impact than leaving the EU. He talks about international outliers, which shows that he is the one who is cherry-picking. We have to look at our peer countries. We're not going to grow as quickly as developing countries, and it's actually astonishing that he is complaining that imports from the EU are also up. That shows that despite leaving the European Union, trade is going well, things are going well, and I believe that if his Scottish government actually takes some lessons from the UK government, they would see much better happening for their constituents.
Mark Logan.
Now, I don't know who's in the right, but if I was a betting man and knowing our Kemi Badenoch's track record with the truth, I have more faith with Allan Brown than our Minister for International Trade. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. Have a lovely weekend and take care, my friends.